And so I yield back.
Ms. Moore, I'm so excited you're going to go teach algebra.
I'm headed home.
Can I give
8
you a
years
long?
old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I give you a long list of our brothers and sisters we work with? I'd also like you to walk them through some of the math.
Well, the thing is that I've taken algebra a lot of times. I had 3 kids. When they failed, I had to tutor them. So I've had algebra lots of times.
I'm going through. I have a fourth grader at basis, so yes, I'm going through it too. Sorry, you should know we're friends. We do this all the time. All right, one of the great joys of being the chairman. The rest of you can go home. I have several hours of discussion and questions, and so let's have at it. First off, I need to disclose, I have in some ways, at a personal level, a somewhat radically different view than a lot of the discussion on the automation, my absolute fixation on quantum and noise suppression and what my solutions are. Mr. Reinhardt, I've read most of your stuff. I agree with you like 90%. I disagree with you on some of the allocation of taxpayer resources. I wish it had gone to quantum, but we'll discuss that at some point here. But what happens in a society where we have fewer 18-year-olds today than we had 20 years ago? And next year we're going to have fewer. And the year after that we have fewer. And the year after that we have fewer. But there's lots and lots and lots of us with gray hair. Matter of fact, double the number than we had 20 years ago. How do I keep wages growing? How do I keep productivity in the society growing? How do I actually have the cures for afflictions? Because if 5% of our brothers and sisters are over half of healthcare costs, maybe the morality is not spending more money on maintaining people's misery, but curing it. So are we on the cusp of a productivity miracle that allows our brothers and sisters to live better, or are we on the cusp of dystopianism where the jobs that exist disappear? And that's actually, I wish, the discussion and guidance from policymaking. Are we about to get so much better and faster in curing diseases and answering the universe's questions and those things? Or are we about to do what so often happens, where we get so worried about the displacements in society, which are important, that we actually slow down the very thing that could have created the productivity? So that's my universal setup. And it is different than much of the literature out there. And I'm sure it's different than the 25-year-old you. Were you in Illinois at that time?
No, Massachusetts.
Okay, oh, even better. So can I first go, I was someone who actually did not like the design of the CHIPS Act. I wanted much of the cash to go to actually quantum and noise suppression, is there noise correction, seeing how fast, because my belief is quantum is the disruption of maybe this millennia, and what it can do, what it cannot do. Tell me how close we are. Is my future a quantum that actually operates much slower because I have to do all sorts of correction, or where are we at? Because I actually, to my vice chair, I actually went to New Hampshire in August to go see one of the projects they have there, where they're trying to actually do, here's our setup and here's actually how we're dealing with noise. Where are you at?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So IonQ has the world's most precise and high fidelity physical qubits. We have 4 nines of fidelity, 99.99%. That means we don't actually have a lot of errors to correct. And it's one of the reasons why for the last 30 years we've led our industry, and we continue to lead our industry in every milestone you can imagine, from when our machines turned on, 2017, when they went in the public Google, Amazon, Microsoft Cloud, 2020. We've been running applications and selling cloud access and systems the last 5 years, and we've obviously expanded into other branches of the quantum ecosystem. So quantum, from our perspective, is very much now, and it's inflecting right now in the mid-2020s. It's possible to try and build a quantum computer in different ways. Everyone else has a considerable temporal lag to the path that we've been on as we started this category in 1995 with our founder. And everyone else also has a significantly poorer unit economic pathway they're on. So you're going to see much more expensive machines much later than us, right? When I think about job creation and where we are from that perspective, quantum computing, quantum networking, quantum sensing, we've created this industry from scratch, and it's just inflecting. And as I said a couple of minutes ago, we're solving problems that cannot be solved with all the supercomputers in history combined.
Okay, and so is that running operational? So if I go to Mr. Reinhardt and grab one of his buddies and say, okay, I need AI to design my code, and then the question, and I bring you I want to design something on massive, on synthetic genomes. And so the math is computational in today's computers, takes a decade to do some of that math. I can bring it to you. Are you ready to calculate it?
Yeah, as our machines get more powerful, we're taking down more and more of the workflow, right? So at the moment, as we've demonstrated with NVIDIA, AstraZeneca, Amazon Web Services, we can turn a month of classical computation work on some genome problems, quantum chemistry problems into a day. Soon it'll be a year of work, and eventually it'll be a century of work into a day. We are, of course, partners with classical AI companies, because at the moment, if there's phones and laptops in the room, these are all classical input devices. So there's classical input devices that then need to call our quantum computers for a portion of the problem. Over time, because of our energy efficiency, we use very little power compared to classical AI. We're not power limited. There'll be a natural drive for people to want to run more problems and more of the problem on our machines, because it's just going to save money and save resources, right? So not only with labs like ORNL are we working on grid optimization and power distribution problems that our quantum computers are uniquely good at, the virtue of running problems on our machines actually helps solve some of the concerns that the committee has had around where the energy future is.
Yeah, look, George Gilder last week actually wrote an editorial about his expectation of a major breakthrough that's coming shortly. So I'm actually on the optimistic side. Okay, Mr. Reinhardt, I come to you and say, you're a believer in free-range AI. How do we actually convince our brothers and sisters of the morality of a whole new types of antibiotics, cures for diseases? Because both of those things are happening from AI right now. And where do you think it goes? Where is, and I'll let you explain the difference. I tried to do this morning on a show, trying to explain the difference between generative chat and a stack that's actually specifically designed to mine a cure for Parkinson's. Help first sort of explain, okay, this could be a little bit scary. This is our great desire.
Yeah, so generally we split AI into two spaces, right? There's the generative AI side. This is ChatGPT. This is Anthropic. This is Sora. It allows for generation of content, broadly speaking, and that's separate from the kind of predictive analytics and predictive AI that typically drives other sorts of applications. The kind of stuff you're talking about, I think some of the best stories are in medicine, right? There are incredible stories. So, for example, my mother she was on a drug, a cancer drug that the newest generation are going to give people extended life years. And it's those sorts of things that I think people are naturally seeing. So in health in particular, I think there's really huge advances that can be made in health, right? The newest technologies that we're talking about, using foundational models, using models that bring in genomics, that bring in DNA, that bring in a whole bunch of material science, right? Some of these hard problems that we've typically dealt with or tried to deal with can be done much, much quicker. So I think that I've seen some people trying to pull together some of these stories and trying to do compilations of them. Some of my former colleagues have done this as well.
Come to my office. I have binders full of them.
Yeah, and I think that these stories need to be told, and as people do recognize them fundamentally, right, they recognize that these new technologies can help them, that new AI systems are, we have to be attendant to the problems. I'm not going to deny that there aren't problems with AI systems. That's for regulatory bodies, that's for legal systems, that's for courts, that's for laws, right? All of these things are there to ensure that there's safeguards. But at the same time, I think people are naturally seeing as, as medicine is advancing, as healthcare is advancing, as some financial products are advancing, I think people are naturally seeing that there are benefits to the newest generation of AI systems.
Okay, let's finish this because then I have something for Mr. Baird. I have an article from a year ago of a whole new category of antibiotics that were designed by AI. And the article's actually fairly long, but in there it actually talked to some of the researchers saying they believed it would have taken humans, in the way we had done it in the past, 20 years to actually come up with this protein SNP type of universal antibiotics. And yet, so many of the people outside these walls never understand that much of the misery in our world, if we do this well, and so, okay, there's my upside. Now, an oddball question, particularly in generative, we all read the stories. Wired had one a couple weeks ago about hallucinations in models. How much capacity am I losing? How much inaccuracy losing? And there's a second part to this. I also have an intense concern of the amount of academically reviewed papers that are actually either fraudulent, the data is not true. There's actually a website called, I think, Academic Retraction or those things. Yet those are often the very papers being mined. How much of a problem is that? So I got two of them, hallucinations and the quality of mined data right now to help me create that new antibiotic.
So the hallucination problem is fundamental. It really, truly is fundamental. As models have gotten larger, they have not gotten any better, and we're still seeing this as a very serious problem. I know there have been some discussions of advancements, right, of different ways to basically target the the end result so that you're hitting a better target effectively. This is, I think, going to be just a continual problem. It's just not an easy issue. The data problem, as you mentioned, is also just as difficult. I mean, there's the input side is there's a lot of singular problems on the input side, especially if
that ends up polluting my specialty stack, which
Yes.
Enrages me.
So, I mean, a lot of companies are going towards something that's very directed on their own data, right? Sometimes they'll work with RAGs, as they're called, but oftentimes there's just very dedicated data that they're working with. They know is good. This is, again, another issue because oftentimes data, at least on the business side, can have a lot of problems, right? The data collection that exists as far as bad studies are concerned that's just as much as a problem in the business side as well, right? That they think they have better information than they do. So the data problem is just endemic throughout the entire stack, and I think that as people start diving into this and as they start figuring out content moderation methods that go on top of this, right? There's new systems that can try to understand this problem.
If it's something you care about, at some point come talk to me. We've been actually sort of chasing this for about a year. And we have a couple crazy ideas to sort of clean up the incentives to chase to publish, even though if you're publishing something, it isn't true. Mr. Reinhardt, when will AI design Mr. Beard's next robot?
I think you should tell me that. I don't know yet.
There are some people working on tools for kind of automating CAD design and electrical engineering. It's a little bit behind, so they're not very prevalent right now. I think we're a few years away from.
Have you started to experiment with the embedded sensors now? So the robot tool actually, at the ends have the new quality of the sensors.
Yeah, and that's so this is one of the fundamental transformations right now is that you can actually show a robot what to do. It trains an AI model, and now it can do it autonomously. And the reason it's important is because this allows us to automate so many more things in this country, and we have a real window to bring back manufacturing by being a leader in physical AI.
Okay, beyond manufacturing, one of my crises is, we have 67 million baby boomers. We're going to have a shortage of people able to take care of us. My wife and I, a few years ago, we visited Japan on our own dime. We spent our own money, and we saw their attempt to try to do sort of extreme senior care and automate as much of it possible because they have a labor shortage. There just weren't enough people. Where do you think that goes?
Yeah, I think that it's a really important use case for robotics. It's one that is important to us and that we want to get to. We have folks on our team that have those types of disabilities, including our founding team, and we think that robots have a place to be able to give folks their autonomy back and to be able to be independent. And there's many Americans that struggle with.
Well, you're going the right direction. I was going to give it to Ms. Whitaker, and I will in a sec, but we see from our own data, there's this hunger to age in place. If I can have a wearable, I just recently was experimenting with a Dexcom and the Oura Ring, and just trying to, we have a piece of legislation we've had for years saying if the FDA will approve it, the AI from the data sets, because you're wearing a medical lab on, you should be allowed to prescribe. Now, that seems to really annoy lots of folks, but the fact of the matter is the accuracy of the data is remarkable. If you start to head that direction, have I actually started to break through my shortage of medical practitioners, my ability to age at home, my ability to be much more autonomous as an individual because you can put it behind the privacy chip in your phone and stay safe. And in some ways, I'm going to hop to Ms. Whitaker, and I got to compliment you. You have been, I was listening to your testimony, those things. I appreciate your boldness of often saying when you weren't sure about something. So often, particularly those of us who are elected, if we don't know, we just make it up. But give me the most optimistic use case of making society better with, quantum, breaking the world's mysteries, to AI making it accessible to even the small business, to the robot providing the labor substitution for my shortage of young people. Am I being pathologically optimistic? Remember, I am 63 with a 3-year-old, so there is a problem here.
I think it's a useful exercise, right, to figure out what is the most optimistic case. And I think what's exciting about AI is that in practical terms, as we've seen with robotics and other sort of wearable tech, is that it can be the solution to a lot of the problems that we're thinking about, but it can also be a tool that can help us think through those problems in the first place.
That's actually...
So as we implement AI, as businesses and innovators use AI to help their research, it can help them get to answers faster. Even if the technology itself might not be the answer right now, it can help humans figure out the answer in the future.
Okay. Now the more uncomfortable. Think of the number of barriers that we as policymakers, administrations have done. It's illegal to automate a port. Much of rail. If anyone's playing along, Google's SpaceX engineers autonomous rail car that would be environmentally dramatically better, would deal with backups in the Alameda corridor, other things. And yet we functionally make that type of technology illegal because of our fear of labor displacement and who shows up in our elections. And yet, the actual cost of that forbearance is actually then spread over the rest of society. What are the barriers to look? I have a fixation. We have barrier after barrier after barrier on the healthcare. The AI allowing to diagnose, the AI being allowed to prescribe, and then Lyft dropping it off at your house in 2 hours. If I gave you just a universal question, what are the governmental legal tort barriers that we need to take on to bring the positive things of automation, quantum, you're in your own universe, AI? Is that too ethereal?
No, I'm actually, I would love to send you some of my work. I've been trying to pull all this together effectively, the areas where you've seen all the limitations. You'd mentioned the 2 crew requirements under rail, right? So for example, in Western Australia, they have automated long haul trains that bring basically iron ore from the western part into a port. So I think that there is a lot of areas that we should be looking at to understand. There's lots of different barriers throughout the entirety of the economy. There's occupational licensing. There's a whole bunch of things that I think that we're going to have to very seriously look at in the next couple of years to ensure that innovation, that people are protected, but also that we allow for innovation where it's.
Look, I'm going to step on you, and it's a thought experiment article, and it's a year old. It basically tried to do the economics of what would the economics be in the United States if every car, every truck was automated. And the growth in the economy was remarkable. The number of people that don't end up in hospitals was remarkable. The ending of accidents was remarkable. It was actually, the authors were arguing that it was the single biggest thing you could do for making the society wealthier. Turns out was the automation of transportation. How do I get the people I work with here to sort of think through that these leaps, these sort of punctuated equilibriums of new levels, and much of that would require you and quantum to make it work?
Sure. Look, you have every right to and should be optimistic. I'm hugely optimistic about the coming years and decades because technology has improved every aspect of lives when you stand back and look over a medium time horizon for the last century, if not centuries. Trying to prevent computational progress and capturing new value, that doesn't obviously improve economic growth rates, which means it doesn't tend to improve lives. I think that you are correct to identify possible breaks in certain domains. There has to be obviously some consideration of the balance of safety and efficiency when it comes to classical AI and hallucinations. The good news is quantum doesn't hallucinate. It's actually deterministic. So there's a great future coming around the corner from quantum AI where just the algorithm that you ask a quantum computer to run is run. It doesn't try and sideload itself on when you try and turn it off. There's no Skynet, concern. And so I think that 2030 and 2035 will remind you of where we were in 2015 from a philosophical perspective. I think this concept of black box neural networks where you dump in a lot of data and you look at correlations and you say, is that smart? Is that helping us? Yes, it is to some extent. But I think that in the long term, we'll see quantum AI supersede classical AI, and it'll be great for the regulatory regimes that we like to be in, as well as great for the way job creation works, where people like machines to amplify their domain expertise and their efficiency.
If tomorrow we had a widely available quantum chip, how much of these AI centers around the country, these are almost no longer needed?
Well, no, I mean, to start with, sir, what we've shown is that our quantum computers can actually help generative adversarial networks learn faster and learn more precisely.
Do I need the same scale of investment? I was trying to find a polite way to say.
Yeah, I think you'll see hybrid workflows in the medium term. In the long term, you'll see, of course, more quantum workflows because less power is required. But you'll see quantum data centers get created probably in the same space.
But dramatically less power, less space, less
With our
heating,
machines,
cooling,
yes.
So I'm just trying to figure if I have $100 billion being spent on building these and you show up in 2 years, is this almost a stranded investment?
It's not, sir, humbly, because today your phone, your laptop still has a CPU and a GPU in it. Mm-hmm. And there'll be a day when you have a CPU, a GPU, and you have cloud access or a QPU, a quantum processing unit is what we call our machines. And you do see specialization in these, let's just say, investments as well as infrastructures, right? Low latency turnarounds on things like advertising, banner ads, GPUs are great at that. And you've seen a lot of investment in that. We're focused on taking problems that might take a century or even a millennia or a million years or a billion years and turning those into days and we hope hours. We're not focused on the microsecond turnaround times. So the future is bright because you see GPUs growing the total economy on top of CPUs. You'll see our quantum processing units grow the compute space in the economy on top of GPUs and CPUs as well.
Interesting. You and I should have a coffee because I've always seen a replacement of, particularly the GPUs, but
They run alongside each other for a long time, and I think that there will be eventual replacement, but it tends to be slowing down of growth, and it tends to be, the new technology grows really quickly. But we'd love to have a coffee, sir.
No. And, okay, and now for robots, and then I'll stop tormenting everyone, but this is one of my only joys I have left in Washington. It's, okay, so you're my god of robots. I have lots of articles talking about it's no longer a magnetic motor moving this, but there's actually revolutions coming of new materials, of different ways to create motion and sensors and those things. What do you think your business will look like 5 years, 10 years from now? What will be the models you're going to be producing?
We'd like to be the biggest robotics company in the world, sir, and put American robotics on the map.
But I'm actually almost asking the technology. Is it
Yeah.
still going to be a cable pulled by a motor lifting something? Or is it going to be, an organic?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a shift to brushless or permanent magnet synchronous motors, and there are some people working on new motor technologies like axial flux motors rather, where you can just use a circuit board to create a good part of the motor, which makes it cheaper and more affordable. So we are tracking those technologies. I think that those things help to make robots more affordable and more accessible to American manufacturers, and we're on top of those developments. I think that generally motor technology has not changed much from there's brushed motors, and then we saw brushless motors, and this is another change. And I don't think there would be tremendous fundamental differences there, but I think there's a deep supply chain that is not here in the US right now, like making strain wave gearing. We're not a leader in that anymore, even though it was invented here in Boston. And so I do think there are critical supply chain components in the robotics supply chain that we need to bring back in the US and make sure the US is a leader in, and I hope to see that over the next 5 years.
Okay. Ms. Whitaker, anything else you want to throw at us because you've been so kind?
Thank you. I think that the biggest takeaway, if I could impart one thing, is that we are really figuring out how AI can be used in practical terms right now. And to your point earlier, disruptions probably will happen, but I think that we have the tools that we need to address those disruptions, and we shouldn't let the fear of that disruption hold us back from all the excellent use cases of AI that we've seen that are possible.
She's about to become my favorite person here. Look, okay, this is the end. If you come to my office, we have a fixation that a combination of AI, synthetic biology, and robotics. And we don't talk about synthetic biology enough, but there are terrifying and miracles happening at this moment in labs around the world. When I have a small binder of purely synthetic human DNA being experimented on, and you start to pucker up a bit on both its opportunities and its ethical implications. But if we get this right, so many of us who are debt phobic and constantly worried about our demographics, maybe there's a way that the fact we have a remarkable shortage of young people, maybe we can make this work. I would argue each of you on this panel have a unique message to tell the elected, the policy class. Get the policies right. Come up with rational guardrails that are flexible, that can learn, because today's policy set of how we want to regulate something will be wrong tomorrow, because there'll be another better, faster way to do it, or a way to go around it, or it'll be done someplace else. Help us, because we can make this another American century if we just get our policy sets correct. Please be prepared. Over the next week, you may get a couple questions in writing, and if you'd be kind enough to respond to those, and they will be made part of the permanent record of this hearing. And Ms. Moore, Martz, thank you for hanging out with me and doing this, and I apologize for our tardiness. It is the chaos of making up for being gone for a month. So thank you, and the hearing's over.